Okay, so here we go. Data, what you do, what we do, and some discussion of QPR for Q4 and time for Q&A at the end. So thanks for joining us today, guys. Now let's see if I can advance the slides. There you go. So our goals for this webinar is that you will be able to understand the QPR process and the reasons for the stringent design and reporting requirements, and hopefully hate me a little bit less when I ask you to fill things out just so. You'll see how your data and reporting fits into the larger STEPP picture and the whole portfolio and how all that comes together. And hopefully you'll be ready to complete the Q4 QPR and be prepared for the annual block portion of the QPR, which is coming up because it's the end of the year. So let's start with your data from the grantee perspective. The quarterly progress report, or QPR as you know it, process. So our quarterly reporting. Grantees submit progress reports in a standardized format. And I know people hate the QPR, and I'm sorry about that, but hopefully you'll like it a little bit more after we go through this. So one of the things that is great about the QPR is because everybody submits in a standardized format, there is, we have the ability to look across all grantees and see changes or commonalities over time. I want you to understand that we're not comparing you to any other grantee. There's no competition. It's not anyone's doing better than anyone else, but there are a lot of things that we can discern being able to look at the same projects or similar projects going on in the same field across the whole state. So that's really neat. The QPR is really focused on grantee outcomes as they have been developed in your implementation plan. Hopefully you see that and appreciate that. And it was really created with pre-populated data to ease reporting burden where possible. So we do know that it is a burden to you as the grantee is reporting every quarter, and it takes time and it takes effort, and we do try to help you wherever we can and make things better. Okay, so let's hop right into it. The QPR mistakes to avoid. So one of the first mistakes that happens a lot that, if we can avoid, let's do it, right, is not selecting a score even if it's the same as last quarter. And I don't have a visual for this. That would have been good. So when you're going through and you have you see that last quarter you scored this as a 2, you're just getting started on it, and you don't put any score in this quarter, then when you come back next quarter, there's no score from last quarter because you didn't report anything. And that's where the main problem is, that you're missing a score in there. It's okay for scores to have fallen backwards. You could have been at a 5, almost complete, we're almost there, and have fallen back to a 3 for, things happen, things are going on. We all know. And that's totally okay. What we're asking is that you use the challenges field that's right next to it to tell us what happened, what's going on there, just so that you're, this plays a little bit into what Vlad is going to talk about toward the end of the presentation, but especially so that your POC knows what's going on, and if you have it under control, if something is blowing up as you speak, whatever it is that's going on there. So select your scores for the quarter, even if they're exactly the same as last quarter, even if they've fallen backwards, we're okay with it. That's all okay. Okay, so another one is trying to move data from the order it is presented to you. And this I'm going to go into in visual on the next page a little bit more, but I wanted to say that you're going to select from the dropdown the same foundational activity or strategy as you reported in this position last quarter. That's what I'm going to refer to them as like position 1, position 2, position 3, as you're going for, and you want your strategy 3.1 that you're working on to always stay in the same place. And that is, we'll come over here and look at that a little bit more. So this is specifically for the LHAs, the competitive grantees, the TA grantees, and the media grantees all report a little bit differently. And it's a little bit more straightforward because they're reporting one set of plans instead of multiple strategies and foundational activities. So over here, when you're looking at this page, we can see that there's a line that says you previously reported on, and then it is filled in and it says to say strategy 2.1 community level protections from secondhand smoke. Awesome. So that tells us that that's what we reported on. That's what's here, and I'm calling it position 1. All the data that follows in this section is going to be related to what you reported last time on strategy 2.1. And as I say over here, they're in the same order every quarter. And so we really are trying to encourage everyone to keep them in that same order. Okay, so you're going to report strategy 2.1. You select it from the drop-down menu. It keeps all your data in order. Perfect. And the other thing, and this will come up again a little bit later, is that we're asking you to consider your strategy selection here, strategy 2.1, and the setting that you're in this case, we're saying the city of Lafayette, as one little pair. This setting box will stay the same from quarter to quarter. That is one that's going to pre-populate, so you don't have to worry about filling it in again. When you come back the next quarter, you're looking at it and saying, oh, we're doing strategy 2.1, community level protections from secondhand smoke, and this one is on the city of Lafayette. Maybe I have the city of Lafayette and the city of Estes Park and the city of Lamar. I understand no one has all 3 of those cities in theirs probably, but for argument's sake, pretend we have those 3. So those could be 3 separate activities that I'm working on, which would each have their own position in the QPRs. I'm going through them. So this one is specifically going to be strategy 2.1 in the city of Lafayette. And what happens there is that then all the data that comes in the next 2 pages, going over all your challenges and facilitators, that scoring of where you are in the 0 to 6 on that stepwise continuum, I guess, and all your reach and implementation data is all going to follow in that same path. So it's all related to this strategy stuff going on in Lafayette. Okay, so the other one was the right way to select, and this one is called the wrong way to select. So here, again, I'm looking at strategy 2.1, community level protections from secondhand smoke, but in my drop down, I'm selecting strategy 3.1. And maybe that you're thinking you would like to put it first because it's something you've been working on more intensely this quarter. Maybe it outranks the other one. It doesn't matter. I need them all to stay in the same order, in the same position as you go. So what's going to happen here is you get the big red X, and that's when Shannon has to email you back afterwards and say, hey, I saw this. We're going to need to rearrange this and fix this. So the easiest way to do it is to leave all of your things in so that they match, and then it'll all just go great. If you're having problems with that or you don't understand what I'm talking about after this, like, contact me and we will figure it out. Okay, so LHAs. This one is an example of what it looks like behind the scenes so that you understand this a little bit further. So as I keep referring to these positions, these columns D through I are my different positions. And what it actually is this is the FY21 Q3, Q2, Q1 data, and then I have FY20, Q4, we didn't do Q3, Q2, Q1 data. And so that's how this sits. And what you can see here is that across all these columns in the same position, all the data looks really good. It's all strategy 2.1, strategy 2.1, strategy 2.1, which is what I want. Perfect. Fancy little check mark. Same thing down here, reporting on strategy 1.2 across all quarters in this, and we will double check on our side, but we assume they're all in the same setting, 1.2 all the way across. Perfect. That is what the data is supposed to look like. So that's what it looks like when it gets to me on the back side of everything. What's happening over here? We see strategy 1.1, there's 2 blank quarters, which may mean that you finished this activity and you're just not reporting on it anymore, which is totally fine. So absolutely don't worry about that. That's fine. But it's strategy 1.1 all the way across. Perfect. Here we have strategy 3.1 that is happening over, it looks like some quarters it's being reported, some quarters it's not. But again, in the same position, it's always strategy 3.1. And so that is okay for me. Fancy blue check mark. Down here, what we see is initially, way back at the very beginning of the grant, this grantee was reporting on strategy 2.1 in this position, and then they didn't report for a while. And then they started reporting on strategy 1.2 here. And so this, as I say, sends the background into a tizzy. It actually sends Shannon into a tizzy, and it's problematic. So moral of the story, no tizzies, just keep reporting the same strategies and foundational activities in the same order, and it's all easy to do. Again, everything shows up so that it tells you which one should be happening in with which setting. Okay, so this is what I mentioned earlier, that maybe you have the same strategy, the strategy 2.1, but you're going to do it in a new setting. Now what do you do? So currently I have strategy 2.1 in the city of Lafayette. And as I said, I want you to think about that strategy and the setting as a pair for reporting purposes. They act as one unit for one activity for your reporting purposes. So if you begin work in the same strategy in a different setting, so this is where now I'm going to work in the city of Longmont. In a different setting, that is going to become a new activity, and it will add to the end of the existing list. So what's going to happen is it is going to go all the way to the back of the line and get its own new position that hasn't currently been used. So first, you're going to report on strategy 2.1 in the city of Lafayette, as you have been doing. Then to add your new one in, you don't just change the setting here to the city of Longmont. Instead, you're going to click through your whole queue of activities, strategies, and foundational activities. Each time the screen comes up, you select, yes, I have more, and move forward until you get to a screen that is not occupied. So here we can see we said, yes, we have another one to report on this grant cycle. We may have gone through 3 different ones that said, strategy 2.4, strategy 3.1, strategy 5, whatever it is. Do we have a strategy 5? Foundational activity 5, whatever it is. And we finally got to one that is blank here. You previously reported on, nothing there yet. So now we know that there is no information in this one. This is not currently owned by any, it's a position that is not owned by any existing activity. And now we are ready to select whatever it is that we're going to report on. So this is how we're going to add a brand new thing. And I know that that can be frustrating because you have to click through everything else to get to the end to put the new one in, but that's how it works. So when you reached here, with no setting, you are ready to add your new foundational activity or strategy that you're working on. Awesome. Okay, pivot a little bit to if you're not currently reporting on a specific strategy or foundational activity. So we get this question, I'm not reporting on it right now, or I'm done reporting on it, or there was the case of we changed how we defined it or something along those lines. So if you have finished your work on the strategy and foundational activity and will not be reporting any further data, you got to where you were 6s across the board, everything was finished, you don't have funding for that part of it anymore, and you will not be reporting on it. You're not putting any manpower into it, whatever it is. But it's not something that you're going to pick up again later. This is for ones that you are done with. They are done and finished. That is when you can select this button at the bottom under Progress Summary that says, we are no longer reporting on this activity. So I've decided strategy, yes, strategy 2.1 I'm all done with. Okay, so what happens is this button will black out this reporting slot going forward. You may still see strategy 2.1 come up in this setting still, and every quarter following after this, you can just click this, we are no longer reporting. That will lead, because there will be no more data moving forward. So those scores that you have, the outline of what your steps of how you know you're finished with anything, any implementation or reached it, none of that is going to move forward with you. You can select this. It'll skip you over the next 2 pages. You won't see those. You keep moving on. If, however, you are just not reporting anything this quarter, it's something that you didn't have the manpower to work on this quarter, or you didn't anticipate working on it this quarter, or maybe you just didn't get anywhere this quarter, it just wasn't a priority, that's okay. In that case, go ahead and don't click this button, but in the progress summary, just enter minimal progress summary information. to that fact. So you could say we didn't have the manpower this quarter to move this activity, strategy, whatever it is, forward. We hope to revisit this in Q1, you know, whatever that is. That allows us to continue showing up so that next quarter, maybe next quarter, all of a sudden you have the bandwidth to be able to handle this or move forward on what's going on, and that's great, and everything will come forward. So again, if you are still working on an activity and you just didn't do anything this quarter, go ahead and put a minimal progress summary I think you have to have 50 characters in there. So just easy to explain, we didn't do anything on this. We hope to revisit it whenever. Then when you go on to the next page, you can match your scores. If you were at a 2 before you just started, like, keep those scores. You don't even have to fill in the challenges and facilitators. You've already told us in the progress summary you didn't do anything this quarter. We're not looking for any more data or information on there. And then when you come back in quarter 1, you will still have those scores to move on from, and you will be able to continue reporting when you have more activity that is reportable. I hope that makes sense. Again, we'll get to the Q&A at the end. If you have more questions about this, we can totally go deeper into that. Okay, so for the annual block that is coming up here at the end of Q4, there are a handful of additional narrative questions I want everyone to be prepared for. The grantees have to report on their overall accomplishments and barriers and challenges of the year and how you handled them. Plus, there are 3 questions on how COVID has affected your program and what that means for your implementation plan next year, if there's going to be any changes or anything along those lines. And there's a question, just to let you know, a lot of grantee responses in FY20 were largely about COVID. Shocking, I know. And we expect a lot of the FY21 stuff will be about COVID as well. If you can try to keep the COVID pieces to the COVID questions, and I understand that they might be massive barriers and challenges, but still be able to come up with some of the accomplishments of things you were able to do, even if that was from a pivot or whatever it was. So these are what the actual questions are. What were your 3 key accomplishments this year? So you will need to enumerate 3 different things that you were able to accomplish. What were 3 challenges and barriers you faced this year that were non-COVID, and how did you manage or resolve them? How and to what degree did COVID-19 and stay-at-home orders affect your tobacco prevention and control related work and your workforce? So there's where you can go into great depth about COVID and pivoting from in-person to work to trying to figure out how to do the rest of it. Did COVID-19 have any effect on the demand for tobacco-related programs or services in your jurisdiction? And please describe. And based on the responses above, how do you anticipate modifying your FY22 tobacco control work to be more responsive to the opportunities and barriers created by COVID-19? Understanding that there are new implementation plans and renegotiations and all of that stuff has happened, and just kind of thinking of how your implementation plan read this year versus what are you doing next year? What have you prioritized or deprioritized going forward in response to some of how COVID-19 has affected your program, what you still need to work on because you weren't able to for the last year, those kinds of things. So these are the actual questions in there. There will be a template of this that is also in the grantee section of the tobaccofreecolorado.org website shortly. So those will be available for you. Okay, so these are very important dates and we will come back to them in a few minutes. So June 16th, that is next Wednesday. We are going to release the QPR to grantees. And I'm going to say Wednesday, but if you get it Thursday morning, that's a possibility. I have to make sure everything is just right before it goes out so we have the fewest number of problems on the other end of it. Okay, so June 16th through 17th, the QPR will be released to grantees. This list of dates will be in there along with links for all these different office hours and any key tips and stuff. I'll probably put a link to this recording in there, though if you're listening to this recording now, you already had that link or you were here, but still. Okay, June 24th, QPR office hours from 11 to 12. So I'm putting in one before the end of the fiscal year. QPR is due for grantees who are not continuing into year 4 on June 30th. The end of your contract is June 30th, and so we need your QPR to be in and finished by that date, which is why I have scheduled an additional office hours earlier in the cycle so that if you have any questions, you can pop on there. For anyone who hasn't attended any of the office hours before, it's an hour that I sit here on the Zoom link and am available to answer any questions you have. You can pop on and see what other questions other people have. If you have a specific question we can work through in your QPR, whatever it is, just dedicated time to sit there and help. We are also available outside of that, obviously, and try to have a 24-hour turnaround on getting back to you, but for most of the reporting period, I'm basically on call to help you with all the drama. And hopefully we'll have no drama. Okay, so moving on with our dates. June 30th, the QPR will be due for grantees not continuing to year 4. Sorry, said that. July 8th will be our next QPR office hours. I try to stagger them at some different times and days of the week. So hopefully one or more of these will work for you. If not, again, contact me and we can figure out some time to meet up and work through your problems. July 12th, QPR office hours 1 to 2. And then July 15th, the QPR is due. It is currently June 10th. We are releasing this on June 16th. We will be releasing the QPR. It is due July 15th. That is a very hard deadline. You currently have more than a month of lead time. So QPRs need to be in July 15th. If you get in ahead of that, we go ahead and review them early and try to get questions asked and answered ahead of that. That's great. July 15th, I am going to have a very hard time if anyone comes back to me and saying, oh, we didn't have this. I was on vacation this past week, because more than a month out, I'm telling you, they are due July 15th. You have access to all of the information that is going to be need to be submitted. If you have any problems with July 15th, please let me know as soon as possible so that we can figure out what to do. Okay, off my soapbox. So we talked a little bit about the QPR and the data process from the grantee perspective. That's the nuts and bolts of what has to happen, what you are responsible for reporting to us, how it gets in, how I need it all in the specific positions, all those things. I understand that's not the exciting, sexy stuff. Now let's talk a little bit more about what we do, the CPEG process, and how we take your data and what we're going to do in the next step. So in that quarterly reporting, these gray ones are the ones we already talked about. These are the ones that apply to what the grantees are doing. The next couple steps are that CPEG provides TA to grantees throughout that reporting period. As I said, I'm basically on call for most of the next month for handling any little problems that you have. If it's access, if it's questions about wording, if it's how do I report this, anything you have, I'm your girl. We will figure it out and get through it. And then CPEG does QA on every single submitted report and follow up with grantees on any questions we have. So if you did not move your scores forward appropriately, or you missed filling in progress summary, or something doesn't make sense, we're going to come back to you and ask you questions about what was going on. So again, myself and a couple of colleagues go through every single report, every field of every report, to make sure what is in there is the cleanest possible data we can have. We then have to go through this whole process of processing the data. The data comes from the system that you submit the QPR into and gets exported and has to be uploaded to our data warehouse, which apparently takes hours and hours. There's more data cleaning, and then we create these targeted reports for a STEPP to use in grantee monitoring and strategic planning. So a quick look at the reports that CPEG returns to STEPP. So here I want to stress that your data doesn't just go into the Qualtrics data hole and no one ever looks at it. There are a bunch of people who are looking at all of the data that you're submitting. So that you know, it is not going into a black hole, never to be seen again. So first of all, we put together this TA request. So it's every single TA checkbox that was like, yes, we would like some help with this. I've redacted some of the redacted the places that would be identifiable here. It's going to go to your point of contact. We have everybody's listed in there, so all the POCs can easily pull what they're looking at. It's which step you're on, what area you're having. Then there's some more discussion in here of what is going on and what you need help with. So we hand that one back out, the TA request for POCUs. We have a report of all of the policies that were passed in any given time. So those might be multi-unit housing, new implementation policies that are being implemented. It might be city or state or whatever level it is that they're being reported on. So all the different policies across the state that are being reported in and how many people they're reaching. We have one on all the price education efforts. So every single time you say, yes, we are working at this activity that we did, this presentation that we did to this group in strategy 2.1, this presentation that we did to this group in strategy 4.6. Involved price education in this way, and you click a little box and you say, we mentioned it in this, it was talked about at this, and all of those are pulled together so that at STEPP they can see all the different places and all the different reach points that we're having of price education across the state. And then we have one that is all the challenges and facilitators. So the facilitators are great in showing us what you are doing, what is going well for everyone. And then the challenges, things that you're struggling in. And again, your POCs can see if it's similar struggles that every group who's working on strategy, whatever it is, everyone who's working on foundational activity 2 is having the same problem across the board. We can kind of try to address those kinds of things. So this is the first set of reports that get turned out, all the aggregate reports. Then there's a whole set of individual grantee reports. So every, and we have about 45 of those. So every LHA has their own report that will come out that will include all of this information. And again, these are going to go and be passed along to STEPP and specifically to your POCs. It includes all different information from different parts of the QPR and how you put it together. Similarly, there is a version of that for the competitive TA and media grantees. Again, they report a little bit differently, and so their reports look a little bit different, excuse me. Okay, so that's kind of your data, how you implement, how you input it, where it goes, how we take it, how we moosh it around in our black box and send out these lovely reports into the world. And then now Vladka is going to do a little, give us a little information on from the 10,000 foot view of what it looks like, how it's all coming together, and another big project that we're working on.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. So what will happen in the end of those 3 years of the grant cycle? I know it's going to be a longer grant cycle this time, but after those 3 years, once we get this annual data from you, we are going to work on what we call the analysis of contribution. Let me see if I can advance my own screen. Yeah, Shannon, so I would have to ask you if you don't mind to advance it. So as you know, you are reporting in the QPR based on the framework. And the way we divided this framework is into 3 categories. That's something you don't see necessarily in the QPR. But the first 3 steps of this framework, they refer to what we call preparation. So it's the situation when you are kind of looking into what should happen, who are our partners, what can we do, how we can educate people. And then the other 3 steps are a little more advanced. So we call that initiation. So you might start to mobilize the community, assess the decision maker support, and then review, revise, and excuse me, propose the intervention program or policy. And then the last 3 steps we call action, when the grantees might be already implementing some programs, policies, or monitoring the interventions, program policies, and adherence. So based on those steps and then on those 3 categories, we are looking at your scores and putting them together in different ways to kind of see what happened during that grant cycle, because we do recognize that we are not looking only at outcomes. Policy was passed, right? Because we know that there is a lot of work going into that particular outcome. And so we kind of want to aggregate what happened during the 3 years and how much work you actually put in. And as Shannon said, this is not definitely to compare individual grantees, because everybody is working in different environment, different resources, but it would be a nice visual way to establish what actually happened during those 3 years. So Shannon, if you don't mind to advance the slide again, please. So those are just graphs for illustrations, and we can, as I said, we can look at the data from different point of view and stratify them in different ways. But this is one way. If you imagine that this particular grantee is working on those 4 strategies, based on those scores, we can create graphs like that and say, well, on the strategy 1.1, the grantee is almost already done with all the preparation, pretty advanced with the initiation steps, and touched on the action. And so we can put all that together, and then all those scores across the strategies. And we don't do that for the foundational activities, only for strategies. Then we can put together the portfolio progress and see where grantees are sitting at that particular point. So this is good, not just for looking at what happened during the 3 years, but also if there is room for action in the future, so for planning purposes. So Shannon, if you wouldn't mind to advance it again. So another way how we can look at the data is like what happened in the first quarter, second quarter, first quarter for different counties. And again, here you can see that the counties are next to each other, but it's not to compare the counties. It's just to have the information in one place. And then I have one more slide, Shannon, if you don't mind. And this is pretty much similar to what I was showing you in the beginning for individual grantees, but we can also stratify that based on the strategies. So to see what actually happened in the particular strategy across the whole state of Colorado. So again, it kind of gives us a nice visual information where things are. So that's kind of, in short, what we are going to be looking at this summer.
I think that's really neat to see where everything is. Obviously, there's a lot more things in preparation and initiation than in action, but it's cool to see things moving into the action space. Okay, so questions, QPR, Q4, or other. Ms. Young, I'm not positive how to, and well, you're welcome to either pop them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question. We might have to talk a little bit more about yours, Ms. Young. I'm not totally familiar with exactly what you're talking about. Diana. Between foundational activity, okay, so the question is disconnect between foundational grantees, between the QPR reporting and the grantee's actual implementation plan.
Hi, Shannon. This is Jolene.
Hi.
Hi, I'm from Delta County, and when you're showing the beginning part of your slide and all the different strategies, and I was like, wow, that would be amazing, But when we look at our implementation plan, we have our different strategies, 1 point this and 1 point that and 4 point this, and none of those strategies are actually like verbatim in the actual QPR for us. And so, and especially because we're a region, we have 6 different counties that we're also reporting on. And when the reporting method is kind of like we're trying to fit our strategies into something else, another format, so our strategies aren't listed how it is. And this might be just the case for foundational grantees, but, I've been told a few times that, well, that, you know, oh, the report should just be based on all your strategies. And it's like, but we keep on saying it's not. And so I'm just, is this something that is just us, or is this something that's just for foundational grantees? Is this something that can be changed for foundational grantees? I guess that's part of my questioning on that.
Yes, so I believe that this is something that is specific to the foundational grantees, and we should talk more to see what we can do about it, okay? So Diana and Jolene, I'm gonna set you up to talk with me a little bit more. I'm sure the STEPP POCs have actually a lot more insight on what's going on. I was not totally aware that it was that far off for you guys. So let's talk a little bit more about that in another offline chat.
Okay.
Deal?
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Does anyone else have any other? I'm going to put up our dates again. And again, you can contact us anytime, evaluationta@ucdenver.edu. But happy to answer any other questions that anyone has about Q4 reporting or anything really.
This is Mel. I'm a fairly new program coordinator, so tried to figure all this out, and I have yet to see one of the aggregate reports. Like, where does that go to? Where would we see like how we did? My understanding is from the person who was doing the QPR these last 2 quarters, she's like, I never get any feedback. I don't, you know, I guess we did fine.
Probably crushing it. Yes, so all those aggregate reports go to STEPP and to the POCs to circle back with you, to use to circle back with you in your monthly or bi-monthly, however you guys do that, discussions and everything. I will tell you that we are working on, we have this whole process in the background that we're building this portal that will give everyone access to. We will put all of the grantee reports would be on there that you can go in, and when you're logged in as whoever you are, when you're logged in, you can access just the reports for your county or group or whatever it is, and you would be able to look back at all the different reports you've done. So that is a work in progress, and hopefully coming in the hopefully coming in this next year, but possibly after that. We're working on it. Kathy Jacobson says that your POC is your first point of contact for QPR discussions as part of your POC check-in calls. So your POC is getting those aggregate reports, and using any questions you had or TA requests and stuff should be coming a little bit from them. Additionally, all the TA providers have access to those, and hopefully are circling back with you if you requested any specific TA on anything there. If you are not getting harassing emails from me, you are probably fine.
That is good to know. Thanks so much.
Of course.
I guess nobody else has a question right away too. The other thing that would be helpful, in your examples, I mean, like, you had such good verbiage. I'm like, oh, I need to see those kinds of examples for when we write stuff.
Yes, I will give you access to all of this.
Thank you.
Of course. Just hanging out if you guys have any more questions. If not, that is all we have prepared for you guys today. As I said, this recording and then the slide set and all of those things will be available behind the tobaccofreecolorado.org website shortly. I have to get them all submitted, and they can end up there. And again, your email that comes out next week with your access to the QPR and all of that will have this dates to know and the links to sorted office hours and whatnot in there as well. If you ever have questions, you're welcome to email us at evaluationta. Most of that goes through me. I'm Shannon, and I'm happy to help you with everything. Vladka is also around and fabulous and just a much higher thinker and working on much bigger projects. And I do a lot of the nitty gritty in working with the QPR stuff with all of you. So if you have questions, let me know today or otherwise. And otherwise, have a great day. Let's see. Yep, Jennifer Schwartz says CPEG and STEPP are working together to further align grantee implementation plans with the QPRs. More to come soon. We are. Secret projects in the works. We're always trying to help you and make it the most useful it can be for you. As a former grantee myself, I know that it's painful to spend all your time putting together a big report and then not ever hear anything back on it. So I get it. I feel like I'm talking by myself here on this radio show where no one really wants to chime in, but everybody's still here. Okay, thank you guys for coming today. You can always contact us at evaluationta@ucdenver.edu, and we're happy to help you with anything. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.